All right, we alive. We alive. We alive. It is on and popping. There we go. There we go. There we go. We are live. Let's make sure that we got all our cylinders moving and shaking on here tonight. Good afternoon, good evening, good evening. For some of y'all, it might be good morning, good morning. At least for us here in Buckhead, Atlanta, it is a good evening. For those of you that are coming on, joining me live tonight, please do me a quick favor. I want you to hit the like button. I want you to hit the share button. If you can find a link to copy and to send to a colleague, a family member, a friend, a partner, anyone that you do business, ministry, or life with, I want you to like it, share it, and please put in the comments tonight, put in the chat tonight. I'm going to be checking the comments in the chat. I want you to put what city you are joining us from tonight. So please do me a favor, put in the city or the state or both that you are joining us from tonight. We are live. We are live. We are live. I really don't even know the last time I did a live anything from my laptop. So we're actually using this streaming service like we always do, but I'm normally in front of my camera using a different streaming software. But it looks like everything is clear and it looks like we are doing very, very well. So again, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is 8 p.m. here in the beautiful Buckhead community of Atlanta. And wherever you are, whoever you are, welcome to our Holdco DealMakers Mastermind. If you would be so kind to put in the chat, put in the comments from whatever platform you're watching us on, where you are watching us from. I would certainly appreciate you if you would just drop in the chat, in the comments, what city, what state you are watching us from. Thank you so very kindly. Again, I want you to like, I want you to share, and I want you to tag someone and let them know that your boy, Ramone Preston, he is live and we are conducting our Holdco DealMakers Mastermind. For the next few moments, we're going to be talking about some things regarding your holding company, how you can properly start it, how you can properly structure it, how you should properly stack your entities under your Holdco. And we're going to also talk about how to develop some strategic partnerships, alliances, and integrations under your Holdco. We're going to be talking about how you can maximize the 5 asset categories. I'll be sharing that with you as well. And we'll take some time to talk about how you can engineer cycles of compound interest, all of this within your Holdco. So again, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our Holdco DealMakers Mastermind. We have been in a training for probably about 4 or 5 months now with our coaching clients, with our university training students. And we've also been working with an exclusive group of individuals who have been participating in our Holdco DealMakers playbook, which is an exclusive training that we've been doing for the last several months now on a lot of the principles and concepts that are tied to starting, structuring, stacking, and ultimately scaling your Holdco enterprise. So again, please put in the comments, put in the chat, whatever platform you're watching me from. Let me know where you are watching me from, what city, what state you're watching me from. Also, if you have any questions about holding companies, please drop the question or questions that you have in the comments or in the chat. I'll answer every question that you have, even if it's not about a holding company. It may be another financial question, a business question, an investment question. It really don't matter. I'll answer the question. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Again, put in the chat or the comments what city you're watching me from, what state. And if you have any questions along the way, don't hesitate to just drop the question or questions in the chat or in the comments. Shout out to my team. My team, they're live with me. They're looking at the comments in the chat. So if it's something I miss, we'll be sure to get back to it before we end tonight's Holdco DealMakers Mastermind. So I want to say thank all of you. Thank you for trusting my team and I, as always, to educate you, to give you information that can help you properly start, properly structure, and properly scale your business, maybe your ministry, your income streams, and your wealth building dreams. Hopefully, most, if not all of you, know who I am. My name is Ramone Preston. Just to kind of give you a formal introduction for those of you that might not personally know me, my name is Ramone Preston. I'm the CEO of Ramone Preston Enterprises, which is an acquisition holding company. And under Ramone Preston Enterprises, we have several subsidiaries or businesses. We have RP Capital LLC, which is a subsidiary, and it is our private equity firm. We have Ramone Preston University. We have a host of other business divisions that we actively operate in the marketplace on a day-to-day basis. And I'm always delighted. I'm always delighted to share the things that my wife and I have been able to learn and what we've been able to execute for over 20 years now, which, by the way, not only am I an entrepreneur and a small business owner for over 20 years, but my wife and I, we are pastors and we've been in ministry for the entire time that we've been in business. And so God has anointed us and assigned us to lead in both ministry and the marketplace. And so a lot of the things that we do in business are directly tied to ministry. A lot of the things that we do in ministry are directly tied to business. Now, even though this is a formal introduction of who I am and what I do, it's really tied to the importance of you understanding the power of not just having a holding company, but how you can use that holding company to engineer, at the very least, $1 million enterprise. And so my hope and expectation, my prayer tonight is that you can leave this mastermind with some value, with some information that can help you navigate to where you want to be in your personal life, in your professional life, and in your financial life. Okay. So where did this idea of a Holdco DealMakers Mastermind come from? Like, why are we on here live talking about the Holdco deal making mastermind? Well, the birthing of this mastermind came from a Holdco DealMakers training that I started at the beginning of the year with my coaching clients and with students who are already being trained inside of our university training platform. And about 3 months into this training that I was doing with our clients, I decided to open up a 6-week training to the general public, to anyone who was interested. And so we opened this training up for 6 weeks, and we had another group of entrepreneurs and individuals who came in wanting to learn about becoming Holdco deal makers. So they didn't just want to learn about the holding company in general, but they wanted to learn about how you can take this holding company and parlay it. How can you take this holding company and use it to actually generate revenue and to do business? Because most of y'all know that even if you do have a holding company, if you set up this entity that you call a holding company, if you don't know what to do with it, it doesn't guarantee that you're going to generate revenue. It doesn't guarantee that you're going to parlay it and leverage it and see momentum as an entrepreneur and small business owner, with or without products and services to sell. And so this whole entire idea of the Holdco Deal Makers Mastermind was a part of this 6-week training. And I made a promise to all of my clients, my students, and the newcomers into this program a few months ago. I made a promise that I would host a mastermind, which is one of the reasons why we're here. So for those of you that don't know, what is a Holdco deal maker? Okay, I'm going to share with you what a Holdco deal maker is and what things you should be doing if in fact you want to not only have a holding company, but if you actually want to use that holding company to engineer $1 million enterprise, if you want to use that holding company to generate more revenue, to build relationships and see partnerships develop, if you want to use that holding company to maximize assets and to engineer cycles of compound interest, if you want to parlay all of these strategies and these tactics within your holding company, well, first of all, you need to know what a Holdco deal maker is, because that's who you are going to become. Anyone who has a holding company and who leverages that holding company in a unique way, and who parlays that holding company to grow revenue and to build relationships and to see more success and to expand exponentially. Anybody that does that is essentially a Holdco deal maker. And so if you want to become a Holdco deal maker and utilize multi-entity structures like what I'm talking about, you got to know what a Holdco deal maker is, and you got to know what makes a Holdco deal maker who they are. So by definition, just in case you're taking notes, let me just skim through it before we get into some of the meat of what I want to talk about tonight. A Holdco deal maker is simply an individual who has developed the mentality for using holding companies to structure extraordinary deals. So for you and I to say that we're Holdco deal makers, what we're saying is that we have developed this mentality that allows us to use holding companies to structure extraordinary deals. Because remember, if you have an LLC, whether it's considered a holding company or an operating company, no matter what type of company you consider that LLC to be, a holding company or an operating company, you know just as well as I know, if you have that LLC, you got your EIN number, you got your articles with the Secretary of State, you got your paperwork, you open up your bank account. But if you do not have the ability to use that LLC, whether it's a holding company or operating company, if you don't have the ability to use it to structure extraordinary deals, you know just as well as I know that LLC is sitting on the side dormant. It ain't doing nothing. The bank account is dead. The EIN is dead. The articles of organization you filed with the Secretary of State are dead. So it really doesn't matter if it's an operating company or a Holdco. It's still dead if you don't know how to use it to structure extraordinary deals. And that's what a Holdco deal maker is. A Holdco deal maker is an individual who has developed the mentality. That means you have developed a different mindset than anyone else who owns and operates an LLC. Okay, that's what a Holdco deal maker is. Now, how do you become a Holdco deal maker? Well, I personally believe, and because I do have a holding company, a few holding companies and I have operating companies under them, and I've pretty much mastered this concept. I know what it takes for someone to become a Holdco deal maker. And to simplify this extensive process, the most important thing it's going to take for you to become a Holdco deal maker, or someone who has the mentality to structure extraordinary deals through multiple entity structures, is you have to recondition your mind. You've got to recondition your mind in 3 different ways. So I want you to write this down, because if you want to become an extraordinary deal maker, AKA a Holdco deal maker, here's what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to restructure your mind, number 1, with how you think. So you got to change how you think. Number 2, you got to restructure your mind with how you see. So you got to change how you think. You got to change how you see. And number 3, you have to restructure your mind with how you work. You got to change how you work. So I hope y'all are taking good notes. Okay. So for all of you that are saying, I want to become a Holdco deal maker, I want to not only own and control and operate a holding company, but I want to use that holding company to structure and stack multiple entities under it. I want to engineer $1 million enterprise, and I want to have the ability to structure extraordinary deals that changes the trajectory of my life. If you are the individual watching me tonight, listening to me tonight, and you're saying that's exactly who I want to be and what I want to be, I'm telling you, the 3 most important ways to do it is you got to restructure your mind, for first and foremost, by how you think, secondly, by how you see, and thirdly, by how you work. So think about this. If you recondition, or should I say, when you recondition your mind by how you think, what does that mean? What does that look like? Well, to recondition your mind by how you think, the starting point for that is with the information you're receiving. Okay. So that means when it comes to business, when it comes to wealth building, when it comes to entity structures, when it comes to ownership of business entities, you've got to recondition your mind with how you think. Let me give you an example so that this can make sense to you. Most people who have an idea to sell a product or to provide a service, the first thing they do is they start an LLC, right? When it comes to them building a business, they start an LLC, but that first LLC, in 99% of the time, that first LLC is not a holding company. I think y'all can agree with me. If y'all agree with me, I want you to put in the comments, like, tell me I'm telling the truth. Holler back at your boy, right? If you got an idea, you want to start a landscaping business, or you want to start a tree trimming business, or a trucking business, or you have an idea to start an apparel company, or you want to shine shoes or do hair, whatever the thing is that you want to do to make money that you believe is a real business idea, y'all know just as well as I know, 99.999% of the time, that person is going to start a LLC, and that LLC is not a holding company LLC. That LLC is typically an operating LLC. So there's a fundamental difference. So when you recondition your mind as a Holdco deal maker, it begins by you changing the way you think about business and understand that I don't have to become a business operator to go into business. When you change the way you think about business, you can change how you approach business. What if your highest and best use as a business owner is not to own an operating business? What if your highest and best use to own a business is to own a Holdco, and to use that Holdco to build or to buy operating businesses, but to never actually run the operating business. How many of y'all following me? Are y'all following me on how it is a difference between owning and operating a Holdco and owning and operating an operating co? These are two different business structures. These are two different functions. And in order for you to differentiate that in your day-to-day business activities, you've got to recondition your mind by how you think about business. When I first got into business, my first business was an operating business. I did not see business from the perspective of a Holdco. I didn't even know what a Holdco was. This is one of the reasons why, as a preacherpreneur, I preach and pound the concept of a Holdco, because I know how it changed and transformed my life, and I know how it ultimately freed me up to operate at my highest and best use. I personally believe, and some of y'all probably feel the same way, I personally believe that I am a better Holdco deal maker, a owner of a holding company, than I am a business operator. I think I operate a holding company better than I do an operating company that just sells products and services. That's just me, because my greatest asset is really not my skill set to run an operating business. My greatest asset is my intellectual capacity to understand these concepts, put them together, and help other people do it, which is what I'm doing tonight. So I hope all of you are still tracking me, because for those of you that are just coming on, so far, we have established the fact that, number one, you want to be a Holdco deal maker. Okay? I told you what a Holdco deal maker was. Secondly, we're establishing the fact that if you're going to be, or because you're going to become a master Holdco deal maker, the first and most important thing you have to do is recondition your mind. You have to recondition your mind by how you think. We just went through what that looks like. Secondly, you have to recondition your mind by how you see. That means you've got to change your interpretation about business. You've got to change your interpretation about business. In order for you to change your interpretation or how you see business, here is what it requires. It requires you to dial in on the micro details that sit right below the surface of every potential deal. So let me give you an example of what it looks like to recondition your mind by how you see business as a Holdco deal maker. Or in other words, what does it mean to dial in on the micro details that sit right below the surface of every potential deal? Well, I'll give you an easy example. When you look at business from the perspective of being a Holdco deal maker, you're not just looking at the surface of deals in terms of you needing to sell a product or to provide a service. You're not looking at business just from the perspective of how much money you're making, how much credit you have, how good of a funding foundation you have to get lines of credit from the bank. Most of those things that we see about business are all at the surface. You're not just looking at how good you are at marketing or selling. You're not just looking at it how good your products and services are. All those things are important, but they're all at the surface. When you see business like a Holdco deal maker, let me say it again, it means you have met the requirement to be able to dial in on the micro details that sit right below the surface of every potential deal. In other words, you see pain points that other people don't see. You see opportunities that other people don't see. And this is about building a visual muscle that allows you to see things in business that other people don't see. I promise you, if you ever have any deep conversation with an extremely successful business owner, one of the things you're going to find out about that extremely successful business owner is that they don't think like other business owners, and they don't see deals like other people see deals. Now, in real estate, we would see this as being able to underwrite a deal, where in real estate, if a amateur investor looks at a property and they do the math on the property and they just look at the basic details of the deal, the price of the house, which most amateur real estate investors, they're just looking at the price. Oh, I ain't paying that much. But an experienced investor who thinks like a deal maker, they see like a deal maker, they will underwrite that property and tap into appreciation. They will tap into depreciation, tax benefits. They'll tap into being able to get a lower interest rate loan, put less down. They'll look at renting it or leasing it with the option for that buyer to a tenant to buy it. They will look at so many different angles and dial in on those angles that they see opportunity that someone else will walk away from. That's what differentiates a Holdco deal maker. And the third thing that you have to do to recondition your mind as a Holdco deal maker is by how you work. And this requires you to start taking actions that are steps ahead, multiple steps ahead. In other words, you've got to learn how to pre-play future deals. That means if you're making a business deal right now, and that business deal is really a deal that you're playing catch up with that should have been made 6 months ago, you're not operating like a Holdco deal maker. You need to be making decisions and pre-playing steps that are 5 to 10 years ahead. So if I make this business decision today, how can I tie this decision into a decision I'm going to make 3 years from now? And how can I tie that into a decision I'm going to make 10 years from now? So that now when I start making these pre-played steps ahead, it makes it easier for me to do what I need to do today, because what I'm doing today is tied to 3 years, 5, 7, 10. All I'm doing is just reverse engineering. This is the mastery level of Holdco deal making. All right, so everybody understanding what I've shared so far? It's 8:25 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're 25 minutes in. I think we've laid a solid foundation for what a Holdco deal maker is, how you can become a Holdco deal maker through reconditioning your mind by how you think, how you see, and how you work. And now I want to talk about how to leverage your Holdco entity structures through starting it, structuring it, and stacking it. That's what I want to get to. But I want to make sure I answer any questions anybody has. As a matter of fact, if you have a question, put it in the chat. I'm looking at all the chats from all different platforms. Also, if you have a good takeaway so far in the mastermind, I would love for you to drop that takeaway in the chat for everyone else to see. Shout out to Marcia, my PA, personal assistant, Valicia, Deanna, I see you, girl. Erica Majors, Miss Majors, thank you for being on here. DL say that takes a lot of money, a lot of credit, and business management experience to buy businesses, correct? Not necessarily. It doesn't take a lot of money and credit and business management experience as much as it takes deal making skill set. Okay, so I know people who buy lots of businesses and they don't use money. They don't even use credit, and they don't even manage the business. They're just extraordinary deal makers, and they know how to dial in on things that other people who would look at that same business won't see. A lot of times people who buy businesses in real estate and other valuable assets, they're just such good deal makers that their only angle is to solve the problem of the seller. Because there are people who have problems, and their problems are forcing them to sell their property or sell their business or whatever the asset is. And even if you don't have money or credit or business management experience, if you know how to, as a deal maker, structure a deal that first and foremost solves their problem. And as long as their problem is solved, while you are able to profit from solving the problem and leveraging the business or the real estate or the asset when you buy it, then it's a win-win for both parties. So it doesn't necessarily take money and credit and business management experience to buy a business. It literally takes deal making skills. And I could even put something in front of deal making skills. It really just takes commitment to wanting to do it and courage to do it. Like literally. Most of the things that I've done in my entrepreneurial investment career were things that I did with no money, with no credit, with no professional experience, but I just had the guts. I was so committed to be successful. I was so committed to make something happen that I ran towards every problem, and I still do that. If someone owns an asset and they have a problem that they are convinced is too big for them to keep that asset, and they're willing to sell that asset, I am always willing to show up and take courage to help them solve that problem. And in exchange for solving that problem, acquire that asset as long as it makes sense. Okay. So yes, that's the answer, DL. He says, then you have to have capital to pay management to operate the business and make payroll. Again, that is true depending on the type of business and depending on the circumstances that surround it, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to have the capital. And again, that's a complicated answer when I say it that way, because it's like, okay, so where the money is coming from, but that's where your creativity has to come in. That's where your networks and your relationships and your partnerships and all of these things that are critical to having in your toolbox as a deal maker. That's where they come in at. Okay. Erica said the courage to do it. That's right. You got to have the courage to do it. You were a wholesaler. Not necessarily. I wasn't necessarily a wholesaler. I'm an investor. So I'm not necessarily a wholesaler. I will wholesale, but I'm not a wholesaler. I'm an investor. So an investor is not necessarily a wholesaler. An investor is someone who invests in assets to make money. We're talking about being deal makers. You don't have to necessarily put yourself in this category to be a business manager, a single investor, a wholesaler. No, I'm a deal maker. I am someone who is willing to take the entity structure that I set up. Let's go back to what a Holdco deal maker is. I said a Holdco deal maker is an individual who has developed the mentality. Let's go back to the mentality. You have developed the mentality. I didn't say a Holdco deal maker is an individual who's got money. I didn't say a Holdco deal maker is an individual who has credit. I didn't say a Holdco deal maker is an individual who's got the best connections. No, a Holdco deal maker is an individual who has developed the mentality for using holding companies to structure extraordinary deals. So I can take my Holdco, Ramone Preston Enterprises, which is a Holdco, and I can stand on top of that Holdco, and I can go out into the marketplace. I can come on social media, and I can just continue to preach and to communicate to the world that my name is Ramone Preston. I am the CEO of Ramone Preston Enterprises, which is an acquisition Holdco, And I'm in the business of doing deals with people who are looking for people to do deals. So if that means you want to sell your business, if that means you want to sell your real estate, I'm the guy for you to come to. It has nothing to do with me having money. It has nothing to do with me having credit. It has nothing to do with me having the capacity and the expertise to even run the business. It has everything to do with me having the commitment to myself and to my success and having the courage to show up every day. And guess what? When opportunities present themselves, I'm willing to unpack those opportunities, or when problems present themselves, or when people who have certain assets come to me with opportunities or problems, I am willing to show up, unpack those opportunities and problems, and to see if I can put a deal together for them to win and for me to win. Is everybody with me on that? Because I just gave y'all one of the greatest explanations for what a Holdco deal maker is. Okay? All right. So here's the next thing that I want to talk about. And hopefully you all might have some questions on this. If not, I believe this will give y'all some value as well. Okay? How do you leverage your Holdco entity structure? How do you leverage that? Okay? Well, first of all, in order for you to leverage a Holdco entity structure, you have to have a Holdco. You have to have a holding company. So what does that mean you have to do? Number one, you have to start it and you to structure it. Now, I'm going to assume most of you already know how a holding company should be started and structured. If you don't, please let me know in the comments if you would like for me to give an explanation of how a Holdco should be started and how a Holdco should be structured. Let me know in the comments if you would like to have just a brief explanation and overview for how to start and structure a holding company, okay? Because if you're going to leverage a Holdco, you have to have one. That means you got to start it and you have to structure it, okay? Now, starting your Holdco simply means you're going to get an EIN number for a limited liability company, whether it's a single member LLC or a multi-member LLC. If you're the only owner, then that means you're going to get an EIN number for a single member LLC. If you and your spouse or someone else is going to own the holding company, that means you're going to get an EIN number for a multi-member LLC. When you obtain your EIN number, you're going to fill out the SS4 form, which you can do online today. You go to irs.gov/SS4 and you fill out the online SS4 form to obtain the EIN number for your Holdco LLC. All right. So whether it's a single member LLC or a multi-member LLC, you're going to complete the SS4 form. Now, while you're completing the form, one of the questions that they're going to ask you on the application is, what category or industry is this LLC going to be? Is it going to be farming? Is it going to be agriculture? Is it going to be real estate? Is it going to be administration? Is it going to be retail? You're not going to answer any of those categories because remember, this LLC is going to be your Holdco LLC. There's going to be a section in that area that allows you to click other. When you click other, there's going to be a space that allows you to specify what do you mean when you say this LLC is not real estate, agriculture, farming, retail, or restaurants. You're going to put in that box holding company. That's it. You're going to put in that box holding company. You're going to complete the form, obtain your EIN. You're going to go to your Secretary of State. You're going to file for your LLC, single member or multi-member, articles of organization. If you're doing an incorporation, it would be articles of incorporation. In this case, we use LLCs because they're the most favorable and really the most easiest entity structures to use, okay? You go to your Secretary of State, whatever state you're in, you file for a domestic limited liability company, whether it's single member or multi-member. You are going to be the organizer, or you and whoever is with you are the organizers. And guess what? Some states, not all, some states are going to also ask you what category this LLC is going to be in. Here in Georgia, they have a section where they give you options to determine what is the NAICS code, what is the federal code for this LLC. Georgia is one of those states on the Secretary of State level. When you're obtaining your LLC articles of organization, you can specify that this is a holding company. Other states don't have it. So if there's no area where you can specifically put what type of LLC this is, it's no big deal because you're going to put that detail in your operating agreement anyway. So if there's no option other than any legal purpose, that's fine, because that does not necessarily determine if or if not it is a holding company. So now you started it because you have your EIN number, you have your articles of organization. And then once you've done that, now you can start moving towards structuring your Holdco by making sure you have what we call an operating agreement. Every LLC, including your holding company, even if you're the single owner of it, needs an operating agreement. You are the owner of that LLC, and inside of your operating agreement, there's going to be a space where you're going to be able to put what the purpose of this LLC is. Your operating agreement is actually stronger in court than what you put on the Secretary of State when you're filing your articles of organization. So inside of your operating agreement is where you're going to state this is a holding company. You draft your operating agreement. Now you have your EIN, your articles of organization, your operating agreement. Now you can go open up a bank account. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? At that point, you have a Holdco. All right? You have a Holdco. But most entrepreneurs who are even introduced to holding companies, they stop where we start. Remember, I said we want to talk about how do we leverage our Holdco structures by first starting the Holdco, structuring the Holdco, but then we want to start stacking the Holdco. Is everybody with me so far? Does everybody understand the start and structure phase that I just covered? Are there any questions about that? This is a mastermind, so I don't have to sit here all night and run my mouth. I'm open to answer questions, okay? Erica said or asked, how long does the Holdco have to be in business before you leverage it? Day one. Day one. Day one. Day one. Day one. You open up a bank account day one. I recommend day one, you get your Duns and Bradstreet number day one. If you got a little extra money, I recommend you open up a NAV account. NAV, N-A-V, N-A-V. NAV is kind of like the Credit Karma for business. NAV, N-A-V. You open up a NAV account. Of course, if you do have some personal credit, you can start leaning into your bank, your credit union, or credit card companies to see if you can leverage your personal credit for your business. This is not a credit building mastermind. I'm not the credit guru, so I'm not even going to make an attempt to go down that road. But just to say the least, you have your EIN, you have your articles, you have your operating agreement, you have your bank account. Now you get your Duns and Bradstreet. You can, if you have the money, establish a NAV account or use some platform that helps you to connect your business credit line so that you can start establishing that. But as far as the question that Erica asked about how long does it take, How long does the Holdco have to be in business before you leverage it? Day one. Day one. See, I come from the world of real estate, y'all. And if any of you are real legitimate real estate investors, you know what I'm about to say is absolutely true. In the world of real estate, someone in real estate for real, they will find a property and they will submit an offer for that property. And they will literally submit an offer for that property in the name of an entity that they've yet to open up with the Secretary of State. I've seen this happen before. Like literally, they'll make an offer in the name of ABC Enterprises or in the name of one business, and they will make sure that if the offer is accepted in the contract, that the contract is assignable for them to be able to assign that contract to another entity, because they're planning on setting up another entity to buy that actual piece of real estate in, which means even before day one of having the entity, you can still make deals happen. Do y'all understand what I'm saying? Making a deal happen, it doesn't even depend on having an entity. But when you do have your Holdco set up, it just makes it easier for you to start leveraging your entity structures. So DL is asking, how do you leverage the business? Well, one of the ways that you leverage the business, if you're referring to the Holdco as a business, is you start stacking. That was the next step that I wanted to talk about regarding how you leverage your Holdco entity structures. You start it, you structure it, and then you start stacking. So what are you stacking? Well, first and foremost, even before you start stacking legal entities or other LLCs, you should start stacking your assets within your Holdco. So in one of my training courses, I call this asset accumulation. So you are essentially accumulating assets and bringing them inside of the Holdco, even if these assets are not separate entities yet. So day one, you don't have to go set up 20 different entities to put under the Holdco. But what you start stacking or accumulating inside of your Holdco are other assets. Now, there are many other assets that you can start stacking or accumulating inside of your Holdco. All right. So let me give an example of what some of those assets are. Okay. Let me just give you an example. I mean, I don't even know if I can share my screen. Again, I'm using this technology from my laptop today for the first time. So if I'm not able to share my screen on this live, no harm, no foul, but I'll explain to you, how do you leverage the business? You start accumulating assets. So how do you start accumulating assets? You start identifying with things that you have that either have monetary value, meaning that they can make money today. If they don't have monetary value, you look at them to see if they have enterprise value. So for example, when I set up my holding company, my Holdco, Ramone Preston Enterprises, it wasn't making no money because I wasn't selling anything. I didn't have a product or service to sell, but I had ideas. So if I have ideas, guess what that means? That means I can take one of the 5 asset classes and I can start accumulating these assets and stack them under my Holdco. So I had intellectual assets. Oh, I have ideas about business. I have ideas about courses that I want to teach. I have spiritual assets. So there are 5 asset categories. You have spiritual assets and liabilities, by the way. You have physical assets. You have financial assets. You have relational assets, and you have intellectual assets. So if you just looked at these 5 categories to see, what do I have that either has monetary value that I can make money from today if I transferred the ownership of these assets to my holding company, Do they have monetary value today? But then you can look at those same assets to see, do they have enterprise value? Meaning that they might not make me money today, but if I put this on paper and transfer the ownership of it to my Holdco, it gives my Holdco enterprise value, right? So when I set my holding company up, I had wrote a book. I had just wrote a book. I just wrote my first book. My book was called The Ultimate Guide to Elevation, for elevation to the next level. It was my first book, about a 75-page book that I wrote, right? Okay, so guess what I did? I took my book. I own the copyright of those 75 pages. I own the intellectual asset of those 75 pages. I had the idea to put a training course together based on my book. So I took the asset of my book, the copyrights, and guess what I did? I transferred the ownership of that to my holding company. Now, I control this asset. I can determine what the value of this book is, what the value of this copyright is, what the value of my training program is going to be. I could have literally, which I did, take a piece of paper and type on that paper, I, Ramone Preston, own all 75 pages of this next level book. This next level book, I anticipate within the next 5 years to sell at least 1,000 copies at $15 a copy, $15,000. I also anticipate to create a course that the course will be sold for $50, whatever, or $100. Let's keep it easy and equal. $100, and I anticipate 100 people buying the $100 course. So now that's 15,000 for the copyright. 100 times 100, that's another 10,000. So on paper, this intellectual asset has $25,000 of enterprise value, at least at some point in the future. Are y'all following me? I can sign it. I can transfer the ownership over to Ramone Preston Enterprises, LLC. Guess what? My Holdco has its first asset. Who gonna stop that? Like, who can stop that? And I can start going out there and selling $15 books, one book at a doggone time. I can sell the book. I can offer the course, even if I offer it at a discount. And guess what? Ramone Preston Enterprises can still sell this book and still use the copyrights and still use the intellectual property. I could actually own it and just license it to Ramone Preston Enterprises, or Ramone Preston Enterprises can start another entity that's just a publishing company and license it to the publishing company. This is how you start stacking the assets. And I'm not even nowhere near getting into how you engineer cycles of compound interest, but this is how you do it. We as Holdco deal makers have to understand, when you recondition your mind the way I'm telling you to think, see, and work, you start engineering your own ecosystem. You're not waiting for some magic wand to be moved by someone else to help you engineer it, because you're the one with the spiritual assets, with the physical assets, with the financial assets, the relational assets, and the intellectual. And guess what? I just shared this one scenario with y'all with just one category of assets. We're not even talking about my relationship assets. We're not even talking about those assets. We're not talking about financial assets. We're not talking about physical assets or spiritual assets. These are all assets. These are all assets. Do we have any questions on that? Do y'all understand the magnitude of what I just shared with y'all? Like, if I don't share nothing else, that should have been worth the cost of entry tonight, which was free anyway. Snoop Line, he said, so once you transfer the assets, does that build equity or something for your business that you're able to leverage for more capital? It can. It can. It actually can. Because remember this, Every asset that you have, if you put it on paper and you associate a value to that asset, it doesn't mean your valuation is the best valuation. It just means that's the starting point, because you can do this 25 different times with 25 different categories, different assets in all the categories. And then you can go to an investor or a private equity group or a partner or a bank or a lending institution and show them all of these documents that you signed and notarized and you put a dollar amount to. That's your business plan. Somebody may look at that and say, you know what? Out of these 25 assets that you have that you've associated a dollar amount to, I actually like these 3. And here's what I'm willing to do. But we never even get to that conversation with nobody because we don't do that legwork. Why? Because we don't see the value. Why don't we see the value? Because we have not reconditioned our mind. Why have we not reconditioned our mind? Because we don't think, see, and work like real Holdco deal makers. That's the basis of this mastermind tonight. I could drop the mic right there, y'all. It's 8:53. I really don't even want to go past 9 o'clock tonight, just for respect to those of you that are here. But y'all, give me a little feedback on that. Did y'all understand what I just shared so far? Are there any questions on what I shared so far? Because I'm not even going to be able to get into the depths of. I have just some notes right in front of me that I wanted to cover tonight. I'm not even going to be able to cover these notes. I wanted to cover how to develop strategic partnerships, alliances, and integrations. That's a whole nother conversation we need to have. How do you maximize those 5 asset categories through building a balance sheet and through basically doing the math? Like I said, you put all these assets on a paper and then you associate a dollar amount to those assets, and there are certain valuation metrics that you can conduct yourself, even though you're not a professional valuator. But there's still some metrics, there's still some things that you can conduct. And I also wanted to talk about how do you engineer cycles of compound interest, but I think we've covered enough. You know, most likely I'll come back maybe in a week or so and host another one so that we can continue this conversation. But for those of you that are watching this and have been watching, if you're not enrolled in our coaching and training program, this is a shameless plug. We have a coaching and training program that's evergreen, meaning that it's year round. It's built on hundreds of video lessons and modules, including weekly coaching calls that we host every Monday night. This program is called the Millionaire Blueprint. We have a monthly subscription and we have a one-time payment that includes a one-on-one coaching call with me. Some of you, probably any of you that are in that program, probably have already had a coaching call with me, and I'm sure you all can attest to the fact that the coaching call just itself is worth its weight in gold, because I know who I am as a consultant, as an advisor, and as a coach. But for those of you that are serious about learning more and digging deeper into building and engineering $1 million enterprise, I highly recommend and I urge you and encourage you to go to my website, RamonePreston.com, RamonePreston. Matter of fact, you don't even have to do that. I'm gonna put in the, let me see if I can put it in here. I just put in the chat a link to our Holdco DealMakers training, which is one of the 30 something plus courses that are built inside of our Millionaire Blueprint. So the basis, the foundation of our Millionaire Blueprint is education, because I want to teach you how to engineer $1 million enterprise. That's the basis. So you get 24 hours, 7 day a week, 365 a year, unlimited access to these courses. You can train and learn and educate yourself as much as you want to on everything: holding companies, tax strategies, real estate investing, creative tax strategies and real estate investment strategies. We teach you about systems, processes, how to engineer $1 million business. Okay. And we also have weekly coaching calls that are priceless. And if you pay for the program for 1 year up front, we can also schedule a one-on-one session. So I hope tonight's mastermind was valuable to all of you. I would love for you to give more feedback in the comments on our social media pages. Make sure that you leave us a review. You can Google Ramone Preston, and our holding company, Ramone Preston Enterprises, will show up. And you could actually leave us a Google review. People tell me all the time that they read my reviews, and they love the fact that people have left some extraordinary reviews. So even if you don't join our course for $97 a month or $29.97 for 1 year with a one-on-one coaching call with me, a review is absolutely free. Okay. Marcia said, and good evening to you, my daughter. She said, not until I met you and my next level family, I never thought about spiritual assets. Can't wait until my next go around in business. Well, girl, guess what? You already got your foot in the door, and we're super proud of what you're already doing. And this is going to be an extraordinary year for you. It's going to be an extraordinary year for all of us, as long as we stay aligned with the right people who are in the right places doing the right things. And I believe our community that we have built around our coaching, our private equity firm, our consulting and educational platform, I believe our community is one of the most extraordinary communities on the planet. We are a biblical-based community. I mean, I'm a pastorpreneur, and I have been for over 2 decades. So you ain't gonna get nothing else out of me but the biblical truth for ministry and marketplace. So it's 9 o'clock, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to respectfully bring this mastermind to a close, but I love all of you. I appreciate all of you. And I look forward to hearing more testimonies, more success stories from tonight's masterclass and from all the things that we will continue to do. For those of you that are interested, click that link in the description and sign up to become a client and member of our Millionaire Blueprint. It's an amazing community, an amazing educational platform, coaching platform. And when you do that, we look forward to seeing you on our next call. All right. Good night, everyone. Love y'all and appreciate y'all. Have an extraordinary evening. I'm out.